I knew something was wrong the moment he looked at me like that. Not confused. Not curious. Certain. It happened in the kitchen, nothing dramatic, just the quiet hum of the fridge and the soft clink of a spoon against his mug. He was leaning against the counter, sleeves rolled up, fingers wrapped around the ceramic like he needed the warmth. And then his eyes lifted. Straight to me. I froze halfway through taking off my coat. One arm still trapped in the sleeve, my keys slipping slightly in my hand, hitting the floor with a sharp metallic echo that felt louder than it should have been. He didn't flinch. Didn't ask if I was okay. Just watched. There's a kind of silence that feels normal. And then there's the kind that presses against your chest like it's trying to pull something out of you. This was the second kind. Long day? He asked finally, his voice calm, too calm. I nodded quickly, bending down to grab my keys just to break eye contact. My fingers fumbled, missing them once, twice, like my body suddenly didn't belong to me anymore. Yeah, I said, forcing a breath that didn't feel real. Traffic was bad. It was a stupid detail. Too specific. I knew it the second it left my mouth, because he didn't even blink. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, studying me in a way that made my skin tighten under my clothes. Traffic, he repeated softly. Not questioning. Confirming. I straightened up, slipping my coat onto the chair, avoiding his gaze now. My heart was doing something uneven, like it couldn't decide whether to race or stop entirely. There it was again, that feeling. Like I'd already been caught. Even though I hadn't said a word. He set his mug down slowly on the counter. The sound was gentle, controlled. Then he took a step toward me. Just one. But it was enough to make the space between us feel smaller. Warmer. Dangerous. Did you eat? He asked. Another normal question. Another trap. I swallowed, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear just to give my hand something to do. Not really. I wasn't that hungry. That one was closer to the truth. But still not the truth. His eyes didn't leave my face. Not once. And then something shifted. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was patience. The kind that waits. The kind that already knows. Okay, he said quietly. Just that. But the way he said it, it landed like a warning. Because in that moment, standing there with my keys still cold in my hand and his gaze locked onto mine, I realized something that made my stomach drop. He wasn't trying to figure it out. He already had. And whatever I was hiding, he was just waiting for me to break first. I made dinner because I didn't know what else to do. That's what people do when they're trying to make a room feel normal again. They chop vegetables too carefully. They open cabinets louder than necessary. They keep their back turned so nobody can read their face. I stood at the stove stirring pasta that had already gone soft, watching the sauce bubble at the edges while the overhead light buzzed faintly above me. Behind me, I could hear him moving through the apartment with that same slow, measured calm. A drawer opening. A chair shifting against the floor. The sink turning on for a second, then off. Every sound felt deliberate. Like he wanted me to hear how unhurried he was. You want help? He asked from behind me. His voice was close enough to make my shoulders tighten. I've got it, I said too fast. A beat of silence. Then, you always say that when you're nervous. My hand stopped on the spoon. Just for a second. But it was enough. I stared down at the sauce, blinking hard, willing my face to stay still. I'm not nervous. He gave the kind of quiet laugh that wasn't really laughter at all. More like breath passing through disappointment. When I finally turned around, he was standing at the kitchen island, one hand flat against the counter, his tie loosened, his expression unreadable. The lamp over the dining table cast a warm strip of light across one side of his face and left the other in shadow. He looked tired. Not angry. Not yet. And somehow that made it worse. Then why won't you look at me? He asked. There it was. Simple. Clean. No raised voice. No accusation sharp enough to fight back against. I set the spoon down carefully on the spoon rest, even though my fingers were trembling. I am looking at you. He held my gaze for a long second, and I hated that he didn't have to say anything for me to feel small. No, he said at last. You're surviving this conversation. That's different. I looked away first. Out the window above the sink, the city had gone dark except for a few apartment lights across the street. A woman in the building opposite was pulling her curtains shut. A cab rolled through the intersection below, tires whispering over wet pavement. It must have rained while I was driving home. I hadn't even noticed. My chest felt tight. "I'm just tired," I said. He nodded once, but he didn't move. Was he worth it? The question hit so fast I forgot how to breathe. I turned back to him so sharply my hip caught the corner of the counter. Pain flashed across my side, but I barely felt it. The only thing I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. "What?" I whispered. His eyes stayed on mine. Not cruel. Not triumphant. Just heartbreakingly sure. "Was he worth it?" he repeated, softer this time. "All this lying. All this distance. All these nights you come home carrying that look on your face like you left part of yourself somewhere else." I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my fingertips went numb. For one wild second I thought about denying everything. Laughing. Acting offended. Turning it back on him. But my body betrayed me before my mouth could. Because the truth is, when someone names the thing you've buried alive inside yourself, there's a moment. A horrible, exposed moment. Where your face becomes a confession. And he saw it. I know he saw it. His jaw tightened, only slightly, and he looked down at the floor between us like he needed 1 second to hold himself together. That was the first crack in him. And somehow seeing that tiny slip, seeing pain finally break through all that control, hurt more than being accused. "I didn't sleep with him," I blurted out. The words filled the kitchen like smoke. He looked up slowly. I wish I could say I didn't mean to say that first. That I planned it. That I chose it carefully. But no. That was just the sentence panic reached for. And the moment it left my mouth I knew I'd made everything worse. Because I hadn't said there is no him. I had said not that far. His face changed then. Not dramatically. Just enough. Like a door inside him closed with perfect quiet. He gave one slow nod. "I didn't ask if you did," he said. And in the silence that followed, with the stove still hissing behind me and the scent of burnt garlic rising into the air, I realized the night was no longer about whether he knew. It was about how much. The smell hit me before I could think. Burnt. Sharp. Bitter. I turned too fast, grabbing the pan, my fingers brushing the hot metal. I flinched, sucking in a breath, dropping it back onto the burner with a clatter that echoed through the kitchen. "Careful," he said quietly. He didn't move to help. That's when I knew this wasn't about the dinner anymore. I turned the stove off, my hand hovering there for a second like I needed something solid to hold onto. The flame disappeared, but the heat stayed, lingering, pressing against my skin, just like everything else in the room. "I should have told you," I said, my voice barely holding together. It wasn't an apology yet. It wasn't even a full truth. Just the first crack. Behind me, I heard him shift his weight, the soft scrape of his shoe against the floor. "You should have," he agreed. No anger. No raised voice. Just confirmation. That somehow made it harder to breathe. I turned slowly, wiping my hands on a towel even though they weren't wet. He was closer now, just a few steps away. His presence filling the space between us like something heavy and unavoidable. "How long?" he asked. There it was. Not if. Not why. Just how long. My throat tightened. I looked at the floor, at the faint reflection of the overhead light in the tile, anywhere but at him. "A few weeks," I said. The lie slipped out smoother this time. Too smooth. He exhaled through his nose, slow and controlled, then took another step closer. I could feel the warmth of him now, the quiet gravity of his body just inches away. "Try again," he said. My chest rose sharply. I insisted, but my voice broke on the last word, betraying me. His hand came up then, not touching me, not quite, but hovering near my arm like he was fighting the instinct to reach out. "Don't do that," he murmured. "Don't lie when it's already over." Over. The word landed somewhere deep. I finally looked at him. And I wish I hadn't. Because there was no anger in his eyes, just something heavier. Something that looked like exhaustion mixed with disappointment, like he'd already lived through this moment in his head too many times. 3 months, I whispered. The truth tasted different. He closed his eyes for a second. Just 1 second. But I saw it, the way his jaw tightened, the way his fingers curled slightly at his side, like he needed to hold on to something that wasn't there. "And you thought I wouldn't notice?" he asked, opening his eyes again. His voice was softer now. That almost broke me more than anything else. I tried to stop, I said quickly, stepping toward him without thinking, my hand lifting halfway before hesitating in the air between us. I did. It just happened. He looked at my hand, then back at my face. And he didn't move closer. What happened? He asked. Such a simple question. But it wasn't simple at all. Because how do you explain something that didn't start with a decision? How do you explain the slow drift, the lingering conversations, the way someone's voice starts to feel familiar, the way their presence slips into your thoughts at the wrong moments? How do you explain the first time your hand brushed theirs and neither of you pulled away fast enough? It wasn't supposed to be anything, I said, my voice shaking now. We just talked. And then it got complicated. His expression didn't change, but something in him pulled back. I could feel it. Complicated, he repeated. Like the word didn't belong in our kitchen. Like it didn't belong to us. I finally let my hand fall back to my side. I didn't mean for it to go this far, I added, quieter now. And that part was true. He studied me for a long moment, his gaze moving over my face like he was trying to recognize someone he used to know. Did you love him? He asked. The question didn't feel sharp. It felt final. Like whatever answer I gave would decide everything that came next. My heart started pounding again, loud and uneven, filling my chest until it almost hurt. Because this time, there was no safe answer. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because I did. The kitchen felt smaller somehow, the air heavier. I could hear the faint drip of water from the sink, each drop landing like a countdown I couldn't stop. He didn't rush me. That was the worst part. He just stood there watching, giving me all the space I needed to tell the truth I'd been avoiding, even to myself. My lips parted, then closed again. I shook my head slightly like I could physically push the answer away. It wasn't like that, I said finally. Too fast. Too defensive. His eyes didn't leave mine. That's not what I asked. I felt something twist low in my chest. My voice caught and I had to look away, focusing on the edge of the counter, tracing a tiny crack in the wood with my eyes. I didn't plan it. Silence. Then softer, almost careful, he asked again. Did you love him? The word love hung between us, fragile and dangerous. I swallowed hard. And this time, I nodded. Barely. But enough. I heard his breath leave him. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just gone. Like something inside him had been holding on, waiting for that one last thread, and I had just cut it. When? He asked, his voice quieter now. When did that happen? I wrapped my arms around myself without realizing it, fingers pressing into my sleeves like I needed to stay contained. I don't know, I whispered. It just grew. That was the truth I hated the most. There wasn't a single moment I could point to. No clear line I crossed. Just a slow shift. Late-night messages that felt too easy. Laughter that lingered longer than it should. The way I started noticing things, his hands, his voice, the pauses between words. And then one day it wasn't harmless anymore. He listens, I said before I could stop myself. The second it left my mouth, I regretted it. Because I saw it, that flash in his eyes. Not jealousy. Something deeper. Something like that used to be me. I listen, he said. Not defensive. Not angry. Just hurt. I know, I said quickly, stepping toward him again, the distance suddenly unbearable. You do. It's just. I stopped, because there was no way to finish that sentence without breaking something else. It's just what? He asked. His voice was still calm, but there was tension in it now, like something was finally starting to crack beneath the surface. I looked up at him, really looked this time, at the familiar lines of his face, the way his hair fell slightly out of place, the warmth that used to feel like home and still did in a way that made everything worse. It's different, I said softly. There it was. The truth in its ugliest form. He let out a quiet breath, looking past me for a second, like he needed to reset the room in his mind. Different, he repeated. Then he nodded slowly, almost to himself. Of course it is. His hand finally moved, brushing against the counter beside him, fingers tapping once, twice, like he was grounding himself in something solid. I watched him, my chest tight, my body caught between wanting to reach for him and knowing I didn't have that right anymore. "I didn't mean to hurt you," I said. And this time my voice broke completely. That got his attention. He looked back at me, really looked. And something shifted again. Not anger. Not even disappointment. Clarity. "Yeah," he said quietly. "But you did." The words settled into the space between us, heavy and undeniable. I stepped closer anyway, closing the gap before I could stop myself. I could feel the warmth of him again, the quiet pull that had always been there between us. "Please," I whispered. "Just don't shut me out." For a second, just a second, I thought he might reach for me. His hand lifted slightly. His eyes dropped to my lips, then back to my eyes. And in that moment, everything felt suspended, like the past hadn't fully let go of us yet. But then, he stepped back. Not far. Just enough. Enough to make it clear. "I'm not shutting you out," he said. His voice was steady again. Controlled. "I'm just seeing you clearly now." And somehow, that hurt more than anything he could have said. I didn't follow him when he walked away. I wanted to. My body leaned forward on instinct like it always had when he created distance, but something stopped me this time. Maybe it was the way his shoulders stiffened. Maybe it was the silence he left behind, heavier than any slammed door. He moved into the living room, the soft glow of the lamp catching the edge of his face as he passed. I stayed in the kitchen for a second longer, my hands gripping the counter, feeling the faint warmth still trapped in the surface. Then I exhaled and followed. He was standing by the window now, one hand in his pocket, the other resting against the glass. Outside, the streetlights blurred against the wet pavement, reflections stretching like something distorted and unreal. He didn't turn when I entered. "Who is he?" he asked. Straightforward. No hesitation. I stopped a few feet behind him, my arms crossing instinctively again. Does it matter? It was the wrong thing to say. I knew it immediately. Because his hand pressed flat against the window, fingers spreading slightly, like he needed something to hold him steady. "It matters to me," he said. Quiet. Controlled. Always controlled. I stepped closer, my footsteps soft against the floor, until I was just behind him, close enough to see the tension in his jaw, the faint reflection of my face in the glass beside his. "He's just someone from work," I said. Another partial truth. His head tilted slightly, like he was piecing together something that had already been clear in his mind. "The late meetings," he murmured. Not a question. A memory clicking into place. I closed my eyes for a second. "Yeah." The word barely made it out. He nodded slowly, his reflection shifting with the movement. "And the weekends you said you needed space." My chest tightened. I did need space, I said. But it sounded weaker now, thinner, like the meaning had already drained out of it. He finally turned. And the look in his eyes. It wasn't shock. That part was already over. It was something quieter. Something settled. Like he had already walked through the worst of this alone. And was just waiting for me to catch up. "Did you ever think about telling me?" he asked. I swallowed, my throat dry. 100 times. That part came out honest. His gaze held mine, searching, weighing. "And what stopped you?" I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Because the answer felt ugly no matter how I framed it. Fear. Comfort. Selfishness. All of it. "I didn't want to lose you," I said finally. His expression didn't change. But something behind it did. "Funny," he said softly. "That's exactly how you lose someone." The words hit deeper than anything else he'd said so far. I took another step toward him, closing the space completely now. I could feel his warmth again, the familiar pull, the quiet gravity that used to anchor me without effort. "I'm still here," I whispered. It sounded desperate, because it was. His eyes dropped to my face, lingering there for a moment too long. I saw it, that flicker, that memory of us, of everything we had been before this turned into something else. And for a second, felt like he might fold. Like he might forget everything I'd said. His hand lifted slightly, hovering near my waist. Not touching, just there. Caught between instinct and restraint. My breath caught. The room seemed to narrow around us, every detail fading except the space between his hand and my body. "Don't," he said under his breath. I wasn't sure if he meant me. Or himself. I miss you, I said, my voice trembling now, the truth spilling out in a way I couldn't control anymore. Even when I was with him, I missed you. That did it. His hand dropped instantly. The distance came back all at once. Sharp. Final. Then why didn't you choose me? He asked. No anger. Just a question that cut straight through everything I had left to hide behind. My lips parted, but nothing came out. Because I didn't have an answer that didn't make me sound like the worst version of myself. And maybe that was the answer. I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. Not even a weak excuse. The silence stretched between us again. But this time it felt different. Not heavy. Not suffocating. Just honest. He watched me for a long second, like he already understood what my silence meant. Yeah, he said quietly. That's what I thought. Something in my chest tightened sharply. I didn't choose him over you, I said, stepping forward again, my voice breaking at the edges. It's not like that. He gave a faint shake of his head, not even fully disagreeing, just not accepting it either. You don't have to say it like that for it to be true, he replied. The words landed gently. Too gently. Like he wasn't trying to hurt me anymore. And that scared me more than anything. Look at me, I said, my voice softer now. He already was. But something in the way I said it made him focus, really focus, like I was asking for one last chance to be seen differently. I never stopped caring about you, I said. Not for a second. My fingers lifted again, hesitating in the air before finally brushing against his wrist. This time he didn't pull away. That small permission sent a wave through me, warm, familiar, dangerous. I know, he said. Just that. No accusation. No relief. And somehow that made it worse. Because he believed me. And it still didn't fix anything. My hand slid slightly, fingertips grazing along his skin, slow and uncertain. Like I was trying to remember something that used to come naturally. I got lost, I whispered. That's all this was. I just lost where I was supposed to be. His jaw tightened slightly under the soft light. You didn't get lost, he said. You walked somewhere else. The clarity in his voice made my chest ache. I shook my head quickly. No. But he stepped back again. Not sharply. Not angrily. Just enough to break the contact. That quiet movement felt louder than anything. I need you to stop softening it, he added. For both of us. The room felt colder now. Or maybe it was just the absence of him being close. I wrapped my arms around myself again, trying to hold something steady inside me. I ended it, I said. That made him pause. Really pause. His eyes flicked back to mine, searching for something, truth maybe. Or timing. When? He asked. Yesterday. The word barely left my lips. And for the first time that night, something cracked through his composure. Not anger. Not relief. Something more complicated. His eyes closed briefly, his head tilting back just slightly like he was absorbing that piece of information differently than the rest. Yesterday, he repeated under his breath. I stepped closer again, slower this time, more careful, like approaching something fragile. It didn't feel right anymore, I said. I kept thinking about you. About us. That part was true. Too true. I couldn't keep pretending it meant the same thing. His eyes opened again. And there it was. That look from earlier. The one that made my stomach drop the moment I walked in. That quiet, terrifying certainty. You ended it, he said slowly. Or he did. The question caught me off guard. I did, I answered quickly. Too quickly. His gaze didn't shift. Didn't soften. Didn't move at all. And then, he took a step closer. Closing the space again, but not the same way as before. This wasn't warmth. This was precision. You sure about that? He asked. My breath caught. Because something in the way he said it felt like he already knew the answer. And suddenly I wasn't standing in control of the truth anymore. I was standing in front of someone who had been holding it the entire time. My throat went dry. The way he looked at me now, it wasn't questioning anymore. It was confirmation waiting to happen. I told you, I said, but my voice didn't carry the same weight. It thinned at the edges, like even I didn't fully believe it anymore. I ended it. He didn't react right away. Didn't argue. Didn't interrupt. He just held my gaze. steady, unblinking, like he was giving me one last chance to correct something before he did it for me. Then he reached into his pocket. Slow. Deliberate. My chest tightened as I watched his hand move, pulling out his phone. The screen lit up between us, casting a pale glow across his fingers. I didn't want to do this, he said quietly. And for the first time, there it was. Not anger. Not control. Something heavier. Regret. My stomach dropped. What are you doing? I asked, barely above a whisper. He didn't answer. He just tapped the screen once, then turned it toward me. I didn't want to look, but I did, and everything inside me went still. It was a message. Short, clean, brutal in its simplicity. I can't keep doing this. She deserves to know. Sent yesterday. My eyes moved down. The name at the top of the screen. His name. Not mine. His. My fingers twitched at my sides like they forgot what they were supposed to do. That's not. I started, but the words collapsed before they could form into anything real. He watched me carefully. Not cruel. Not satisfied. Just done pretending. He came to me, he said. The room tilted slightly. What? I whispered. His jaw tightened just enough to show this wasn't easy even now. He asked to meet, he continued. Said there was something I needed to hear. Each word landed slowly, deliberately, like he had already lived this moment once and didn't want to rush through it again. I thought it was a joke, he added, a faint, humorless breath escaping him. Or some kind of mistake. My heart was pounding now, loud and uneven, like it was trying to escape everything happening around me. But it wasn't. I shook my head, taking a step back this time. Away from him. Away from the truth unraveling in front of me. He told me everything, he said. Everything. That word echoed louder than anything else. What do you mean everything? I asked, my voice shaking now. He held my gaze. And this time, there was no softness left to hide behind. I mean, he said quietly. He told me things only someone who was there would know. My chest tightened painfully. Fragments flashed through my mind, conversations, moments, the way I let things slip too far, too easily. No, I whispered, more to myself than to him. But he kept going. Where you met, he said. A beat. What you talked about. Another step closer. The way you looked at him when you thought no one else noticed. My breath caught sharply. Because that part felt too real. Too exposed. I didn't say anything, he added. I just listened. Of course he did. That's who he is. Or who he was. And then, he continued, his voice dropping slightly, he told me he ended it. The room went silent again. But this time, it felt like everything had already shattered. I stared at him, my lips parting slowly as the truth finally caught up with me. Not the version I told. Not the version I wanted to believe. The real one. And in that moment, I realized something that made my chest ache in a completely different way. He didn't leave because of me, I whispered. It wasn't a question. It was a realization. His gaze didn't soften. Didn't shift. No, he said. And then after a pause, he left because of what you were doing to me. I don't remember moving. But suddenly I was sitting. The edge of the couch pressed into the back of my legs, my hands resting uselessly in my lap like they didn't belong to me anymore. The room felt distant, like I was watching it through glass. He stayed standing. Not pacing. Not turning away. Just there, solid, grounded, impossibly calm for someone who had every right not to be. I didn't know, I said, but the words sounded empty the second they left me. Because I had known. Maybe not everything. Maybe not like this. But enough. Enough to stop. Enough to choose differently. He didn't respond right away. He walked past me slowly, the faint brush of air shifting as he moved, and sat down in the chair across from me. Not beside me. Across. That distance felt intentional. Final. He said something else, he added after a moment. I looked up, my chest tightening again, bracing for whatever was left. He said you never looked at him the way you look at me. The words hit softer than the rest, but somehow deeper. My breath caught and I felt it, that sharp, aching pull in my chest, like something inside me was trying to reach for him again. Because it was true. God, it was true. I love you, I said. This time I didn't hesitate, didn't soften it, didn't hide behind anything. Came out raw, unfiltered. Late. He held my gaze, his expression unreadable. I know, he said. The same words as before. But now they meant something entirely different. Then why does it feel like you've already decided? I asked, my voice breaking as I leaned forward slightly, my fingers gripping the edge of the couch. Because I could feel it. That quiet distance. That place I couldn't reach anymore. He exhaled slowly, his hands clasping together loosely between his knees. For a second he looked down, just a second, like he was searching for something in the space between his thoughts. Then he looked back at me. Because I didn't find out tonight, he said. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? His eyes stayed on mine, steady, unwavering. I knew before he came to me. The words landed gently, but they shattered everything. I saw it, he continued. In the way you pulled away. The way your phone became more important than our conversations. The way you stopped reaching for me without thinking. Each detail felt like a mirror I didn't want to look into. I just didn't want to believe it yet. My vision blurred slightly. So you waited? I whispered. He nodded once. I was hoping you'd choose me on your own. That broke something. Completely. I did, I said quickly, tears slipping down before I could stop them. I ended it. I'm here. He watched me carefully. Not cold. Not cruel. Just certain. You came back, he said. But not before leaving. The truth of it settled heavy in the space between us. I shook my head, my hands trembling now. That doesn't mean we can't fix this. For the first time. He hesitated. Just a flicker. Just enough to make my heart reach for something that might still be there. But then he leaned back slightly, creating that distance again. I think, he started, his voice quieter now. You already felt what it's like to be somewhere else. A pause. And I can't unfeel that. Silence filled the room. Not sharp. Not loud. Just over. I stared at him, trying to memorize the way he looked at me now, like someone he loved, but no longer trusted to stay. And that was worse than anger. Worse than shouting. Because there was nothing left to fight against. Only something to accept. He stood up slowly, grabbing his keys from the table. The same keys that used to jingle when he came home to me. Now they sounded different. Final. He paused at the door, his hand resting on the handle for just a second. I hope it was worth understanding yourself, he said quietly, without turning around. The door opened. Then closed. And just like that, the silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt empty. Like something that used to live inside it had finally left. Some betrayals don't end when the truth comes out. They end when the person who loved you stops waiting for you to come back.